There is a moment, almost impossible to notice, when the temperature in a room starts to drop. There is no sudden gust of wind, no glass breaks, and no one turns off the heat all at once. The warmth simply slips away, so quietly that you only realize you are cold when you find yourself shivering. Falling out of love happens the exact same way. It is rarely a loud, dramatic, or violent event. Most of the time, it is the slow realization that the person next to you, the very same person you shared passwords, late-night laughs, and next summer's plans with, has become a distant land. The end of love is not the screaming match of an argument. It is the heavy weight of a silence that is no longer comfortable. It is looking into someone's eyes and realizing that even though your bodies are occupying the same space, your lives have already taken different paths. Let me ask you, how long have you been trying to hold on to something that has already faded away? You live with the constant fear of admitting that the story is over. You cling to the memories of what used to be, to the nostalgia of those first few months, and to the promise of a future you built out of expectations and wishes. You punish yourself, thinking that if you only tried a little harder, if you had more patience, if you could just bear the pain a little longer, you could force the spark to catch fire again. But love is not an exam you can pass through pure sacrifice. Today, we aren't going to talk about unforgivable betrayals, nor are we looking for someone to blame or searching for magic recipes to forget someone in a week. We are going to step down into this quiet space of absence together. We are going to understand, calmly and deeply, how the end of a relationship is actually a process of finding clarity. Get ready, because we are going to let go of the guilt, empty our bags of what couldn't be, and discover that the end of an us is often the most honest beginning of your own journey back home. We have been taught to believe that relationships end with a giant explosion, a destructive betrayal, an unforgivable lie, or a massive fight that breaks everything in a single second. But daily life is much quieter. Love rarely dies from a sudden impact. It dies from erosion. Erosion is the steady, patient work of water on rock. It is made of the tiny daily frictions we choose to ignore because they seem too small to matter. It is the conversation you put off because you are too tired. The touch you stop giving because you already know each other so well. The habit of looking at your phone instead of asking how their day went. It is the slow swap of wonder for routine and closeness for polite distance. Then, one day you wake up and realize you have become excellent roommates. You care about each other, of course, but it is a brotherly affection, a warmth that belongs more to nostalgia than to the present. The passion is no longer a fire. It is a cold ash that you try to blow on desperately, only to fill your eyes with dust. The most painful part of this invisible erosion is that there is no bad guy in the story. It is much easier to heal when there is an obvious betrayal, because anger gives you a direction, a target for your pain. But what do you do when love ends simply because it wore out? Who do you blame when you are both good people, when nobody did anything wrong, but the connection simply isn't there anymore? Admitting that love has worn out takes immense maturity. It means accepting that things can be beautiful and still have an expiration date. In nature, leaves fall in autumn not because they are sick or because the tree hates them. They fall because their cycle is over and the tree needs to shed them to survive the winter. Your relationship did not fail because it ended. It simply completed its season. And forcing a dry leaf to stay on the branch will only keep spring from blooming in you again. When a relationship ends, what hurts us most isn't the loss of the present. After all, the present of those last few months was probably filled with tension, awkward silences, or pointless arguments. What truly tears us apart inside, what keeps us crying at 3 in the morning staring at a screen, is the death of the future we had planned. We constantly project ourselves forward. When we fall in love, we begin to weave an invisible web of expectations. We imagine the house we will buy, the trips we will take, the years we will spend growing old together gracefully. We build a giant mental scaffolding on top of the other person. And when they leave, or when the connection breaks, that entire structure collapses right on top of us. Nostalgia is the mind's addiction to a fantasy that never actually happened. You don't miss the real person who ignored you or whom you could no longer talk to. You miss the perfect version your mind had projected onto them for the future. You miss the forever. You miss the security of believing you knew exactly what your life would look like 10 years from now. Finding clarity in the silence means learning to separate reality from projection. Look around you. The future is not a solid ground you can own. It is just an idea in your head. The only reality you have is this exact second where you are breathing. The person who left didn't take your future with them. They just took their half of the drawing. The canvas still belongs to you. And even though it looks huge and empty right now, that emptiness is also the only space where you can paint something new with complete freedom. Do not rush to find someone else to fill that empty space. The pain of a broken expectation can only be healed by living in the present, with all its rough edges and awkward silences. It's about understanding that being single or being alone is not a lack of wholeness. It is your natural state of independence from which you can decide, calmly and without rush, who you want to share your path with next time. Heartbreak plays out in the most ordinary physical parts of life. It is a map of absence that you must learn to walk day by day, step by step. It is the automatic habit of going to the grocery store and reaching for their favorite food, only to stop in the middle of the aisle with a heavy heart as you remember you don't need to buy it anymore. It is the silence that fills the kitchen in the morning, a space that used to be full of everyday noises, the coffee maker running, the clumsy footsteps of someone waking up, the casual chat about the weather. It is the weight of the bed at night, which now feels twice as wide, with the left side remaining cold and untouched. Your brain is a machine built on habits and connections. For months or years, it has linked every corner of your home, every song, every street, and every hour of the day to the presence of the other person. When they are gone, those neural pathways are still there, sending signals that no longer find an answer. It is a physical, biological grief. Don't try to speed up this process with fake distractions or by pretending to be stronger than you are. If you have to cry in the grocery store, cry. If you have to sit and stare at the coffee maker in silence for 10 minutes, do it. Those small moments of pain are not steps backward. They are the natural process your brain uses to rewrite the map of your life. It is learning that the kitchen is still useful even with only one mug, that the bed is still comfortable even if you sleep right in the middle, and that your existence still matters even if there is no one on the other end of the phone to hear about your day. Mourning these everyday routines is a lesson in humility. It teaches you that you are not invulnerable and that pain is part of the price we pay for daring to love someone. That pain deserves to be treated with respect, not shame. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is remembering the other person without your heart racing, looking at the empty mug and simply seeing a clean cup ready to be used again. When you spend a lot of time with someone, something inevitable happens. Your identities get tangled up. You create your own language, private jokes no one else gets, and a way of walking together that matches each other's pace. The us becomes a third entity that feels stronger and more real than the two individuals who make it up. This is why you feel so lost when a relationship ends. You feel like you have lost not just the other person, but yourself. You look in the mirror and ask, who am I now that I'm not part of a couple? You have handed over so much of your identity to the other person that when they walk away, you feel like a half-built structure. Heartbreak forces you to look into an uncomfortable mirror. It strips away the disguise of the relationship and leaves you alone with your own cracks, your old fears, and the empty spaces you used to cover up with their presence. The immediate temptation is to run away from that mirror. You look for any distraction, bury yourself in work, or jump into quick, superficial relationships that act like emotional painkillers. You can't stand being alone because you don't like what you see in the mirror of being single. But the only way to feel whole again is to sit with that discomfort. Untangling the us is like a patient archaeological dig. It is about looking beneath the layers of the relationship for the things that were yours before you started. The music you stopped listening to because your partner didn't like it. The hobby you gave up for lack of shared time. The silence that used to scare you but can now become your quiet sanctuary. You don't have to rush to rebuild yourself like a hurried construction project. You need to give yourself permission to feel incomplete for a while, to be a cracked clay jar whose scars haven't closed yet. Remember, you aren't broken, you are just unglued. And in that space opening up between the pieces, you have the chance to decide for the first time in a long time what kind of material you want to use to shape your character from now on. Our modern ego has an obsessive need to simplify things to protect itself. When a relationship ends, your mind immediately tries to write a story of good guys and bad guys. You need the other person to be the villain so you can be the victim. It is a very effective defense mechanism. If they're to blame for everything, you don't have to do the uncomfortable work of looking at your own mistakes. But in the real world of heartbreak, there are rarely movie villains. Most of the time, there are simply two tired people. Two people who tried their best with the emotional tools they had at the time, who made mistakes out of fear, immaturity, or simple human clumsiness, but who can no longer bring out the best in each other. Holding on to bitterness toward your ex is like drinking poison every day and expecting the other person to die. It keeps you chained to the past with a thread of anger that is just as strong as the thread of attachment. Rage makes you feel strong at first, but over time, it turns into a heavy armor that keeps you from breathing and hardens you inside. Compassion at the end of a relationship is not weakness, nor is it about pardoning the unpardonable if there was real harm. Compassion is simply the smart choice to drop the heavy stone of judgment so it stops dragging you down. It is being able to look back and think, it was beautiful while it lasted, it hurt when it broke, but I wish you peace on your path, away from me. It is recognizing that the other person is also walking through their own desert with their own wounds and their own limits. When you stop needing your ex to be the monster in your story, you free yourself. You stop being the victim of their actions and become the author of your own recovery. Peace doesn't come when they apologize or when the world agrees with you. It comes when you decide that your peace today is worth much more than your resentment from yesterday. How do you start walking again when you feel like the ground has been pulled from under you? The answer is as old as life itself, by going back to the basics. When your inner world has gone through an emotional earthquake, don't try to rebuild giant skyscrapers right away. Focus on the simple, daily foundations. Lean into the architecture of absolute simplicity. Spend your mornings taking care of your body as the fragile, precious home that it is. Make your breakfast mindfully, feeling the warmth of the mug in your hands. Keep your living space clean, tidy, and bright. Physical clutter in your room is the strongest fuel for emotional clutter in your head. Walk under the trees, breathe in the fresh morning air, feel your feet hit the solid ground, and remember that you are biologically alive right here and now. Don't make massive promises of happiness for next year. Just commit to the honesty of this exact moment. Overcoming heartbreak is not a spectacular event that happens overnight. It is the quiet accumulation of tiny daily choices. It is choosing not to check your ex's social media today. It is choosing to read a page of a book instead of sinking into a loop of old memories. It is accepting a coffee invitation from a friend, even if you don't feel like it, just to remind yourself that the world keeps spinning outside your personal drama. This quiet rebuilding is about falling in love with your own healing process. Just like an artisan mending a broken clay jar with golden thread, learn to treat your cracks with the utmost care and respect. Those emotional scars you try to hide out of shame are your badges of honor. They are physical proof that you had the courage to open your heart to the world, that you broke, but that you also have the inner strength to stand back up on your own feet, stronger, wiser, and more whole than before. At the end of this long journey through the desert of absence, heartbreak stops feeling like an unfair punishment and begins to reveal itself as what it always was, a sacred return to the lightness of your own being.
There is no one left to please at the expense of your own peace. There are no more pointless arguments at midnight to defend your emotional boundaries. There is no more desperate fear of losing someone because you have realized that in the middle of the most destructive storm, the only one who was always there to hold you up was yourself. Don't rush back into love right away. Don't be afraid of the quiet of your Sunday afternoons. Live in your empty space with the dignity of a king in his quiet castle. Take a deep breath right now. Feel the air enter and leave your body without you having to make any effort to guide it. You are safe. You are whole. You are here.
The wound has stopped bleeding. Now it is time to let time knit a new, stronger layer of character. Walk slowly, with open hands, without trying to control anyone's destination and without letting anyone define the value of your own journey. Let me know in the comments, what is one small burden or expectation you are going to let go of today to let your boat sail lightly again in your single life? I will read your thoughts with absolute respect. Thank you for letting me share these words with you in your quiet moment today. Subscribe if you're ready to quiet the noise of autopilot and reclaim ownership of your days. And now, do me a favor. Turn off this screen. Don't look for any more videos to watch. Stand still for a moment. Feel the echo of these reflections settle gently in your chest. Breathe, and then simply continue on your path.